All right, well, let's do this. Think we got a little bit to talk about today. Hey, Pike, Steinberg on the top, Ryan Pike on the bottom. As we welcome you to a Darryl Sutter edition of Flames Nation Live. Happy Friday. I'm in our downtown offices. I had to move upstairs because we got Hitman Hockey on the air right now, and Pike is at his satellite studio. How about the last, 20 hours, 18 hours or so, Pike? What an absolute whirlwind, and it all concludes with Darryl Sutter back as head coach of the Calgary Flames.
You know who I feel bad for? Dylan Dubé barely got a chance for a victory lap with his first career hat, and then immediately he's not even close to the top story in Calgary Flames land. So Dylan, we're sorry. Good work, good goals. We're not really going to talk about you a lot here, though.
Yeah, good for you, Dylan. That was great. That was awesome. But unfortunately, the story was Darryl Sutter on Thursday night and all day Friday. Let's say hello to everybody watching. Welcome to Flames Nation Live. We got Shane in first, Kyle, JF, Matt, Jordan, Trent, Christopher. All have said hello so far. Get your thoughts in on the live chat on Facebook Live. We'll tell you this right now. We are brought to you by our great friends at Deuce Vodka. Maybe more celebratory Deuce Vodka today. Maybe it's more of a let's do a shot, or let's crush some vodka sodas, as opposed to let's drink our sorrows away, which has been the main theme for the Calgary Flames over the last number of weeks. The timing of the Darryl Sutter hiring was bizarre. So as we are brought to you by our friends at Deuce Vodka, let me tell you the way that I took it. And I got a tip at about 10:45 on Thursday night, and so I get the text. We're in the middle of our post-game show, the Hot Stove Lounge on Sportsnet 960 Radio. So I get the tip, and I look down, and it says, I won't tell you exactly what it said, but I was like, holy, something's happening. And at the time, I didn't know what the something happening was. So I go, okay. I took a break, and usually there's a set way we go to break. It's like, we got to go to break. Sportsnet 960 The Fan. In the commercial break, I got the details, and then you're just waiting for the announcement to come so that we could come back on, and boom, I think it was 10:48 p.m. The Flames announced Darryl Sutter has been hired as head coach, not interim head coach, hired as head coach, and we found out that it's a 3-year deal, and Geoff Ward relieved of his duties, and one of those scenarios, Pike, where you just your mind's blown. Like, I knew he was out there. I know he's a hell of a head coach. I just didn't think Darryl Sutter coming back to the Calgary Flames was actually going to happen. Everything both you and I had kind of were led to believe was that, maybe he was content just going about his business on the ranch, and the coaching world, he was fine leaving in the past. But Flames gave him the old Vito Corleone and the offer he can't refuse, and he's back for his second stint as head coach of the team.
Yeah, I mean, we the game ended about 9:30ish. We did our usual media avails with the players and with Geoff Ward, and it felt very by the numbers. Everyone's saying the right things. A pretty decent win over a fairly overmatched Ottawa Senators team. The Ottawa Senators look like who we thought they would look like against the Flames this year. Unfortunately, they've only looked against the Flames like that half the time. Which plays into this, but for me, like I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get a snack. I'm gonna go walk to the corner store. It's nice out. Go for a little stroll, grab some snacks, come back.
What'd you get?
Yeah, I come back, open up my computer, and literally like 10:29, 10:28. Twitter explodes. I'm like, well, time to scrap everything I wrote for tomorrow.
I just before, like, what did you get as your snacks? This is the most important part.
I got a Slurpee and some Mike and Ike's.
Ooh, healthy, very, very healthy.
Healthy-ish. Well, yeah, it's like I would put this, like, you and I have both been doing this a while. I put this up there with another midweek evening in March. in 2013 when the Flames got rid of Jerome Iginla. That was probably the only one up there. The Iginla trade we kind of knew was coming. We just didn't know what it would look like. And then it was basically just everyone rewriting their stories when it was Pittsburgh instead of Boston.
Right.
This one was a little bit more out of left field because, like you said, I don't know. Darryl Sutter's 62. He's got 2 Stanley Cups. He has, a family. He's got a ranch. He seemed pretty content. Like I spoke with him, I believe last year. He's been with the Anaheim Ducks as a consultant up until now. Talking to his brothers, talking to Darryl. He seemed pretty chill. Like whatever. It seemed like it would take something extravagant to get him out of retirement and a chance to exercise old demons seems to be the thing that lured him out because, what was it? The first thing he said was unfinished business. He still got he still got something stuck in his craw, like many people do in this city about the 2004 here to try to win it. Words, he's been very blunt about it in typical Darryl Sutter fashion. He feels he owes ownership here in the community a Stanley Cup. Oh, we'll see. Because let's be honest, on paper, you've been covering this team a bit longer than I have. This is probably on paper the best team this city's had. On ice, hasn't really turned out that way. And maybe you get a Darryl Sutter. You spend the money on I wrote about this last night. Our mutual friend Ariane when she was at Flamesnation, she wrote fairly
former
extensively.
Boss.
Yeah, she wrote about very eloquently about half measures where the Flames for years they didn't really spend they since pretty much in the modern era they sort of went. Instead of making a big swing and goal, for example, they go for let's get Brian Elliott, let's get, Chad Johnson, let's get Kari Ramo. All good goaltenders, but all arguably nobody's a Vezina caliber goaltender. No one that's going to blow your hair back and go, holy cow, they got him. Then they go and get Jacob Markstrom, who's, you were all over that story. You and I both went on wherever the hell day it was in October. Holy cow, they got him. That's a home run swing. But for coaches, it's been guys who haven't coached in the NHL since, or guys who have never coached in the NHL. And all due respect to Geoff Ward felt very much like a Calgary Flames coaching hire in the modern era. And then they go out and they get a guy with 2 Stanley Cup rings and a really extensive resume as an NHL head coach. And this feels as big as the Markstrom signing in terms of something that could change the trajectory of the franchise. So, anyone who is saying if you were someone who's critical of Flames management and ownership for not really doing a lot of big things, well, they're spending to the cap. They just spent close to $300 million on an arena, and they just spent what's probably not a small amount of money to get Darryl Sutter out of retirement. There's only one active coach right now in the NHL who has more Stanley Cup rings than him. That's Joel Quenneville. And according to Cap Friendly, Joel Quenneville's making north of $5 million a year. So Darryl Sutter is not doing this as a volunteer gig. He's getting well compensated. And, if this is – I was on Edmonton radio this morning right before the press conference. This feels like Flames management looking at the group of players they have, shoving their poker chips to the middle of the table and going, okay, let's do this.
Well, and it's my belief that we're talking about an elite head coach here. I really do believe that, Darryl Sutter is an elite coach in this league. And Brad Treliving in his news conference today used the term maximizing. And I think that's what Darryl does. I really do. And here's so I think anybody who has criticized them not going out and getting elite coaches before, fair. And I'm not saying that you didn't have reason to criticize. This guy's an elite coach. He's got his Stanley Cups. He's got a track record of elevating teams. He did it in San Jose. He did it in his first stint in Calgary, and he did it in Los Angeles to the highest degree. Don't forget where the Kings were when he took over during the 11-12 season. Don't forget how scuffling that season was for an LA team that had high expectations. And don't forget that they were one of the most elite teams in the second half of the season until they raised the Stanley Cup against the New Jersey Devils. So what Darryl Sutter does is elevate teams. And so you can't tell me that he's not an elite coach. You can't tell me, to your word, to Ari's word, that this is a half measure. They're bringing in a guy who can elevate teams. I don't know what the fit is going to be, because you never know until a coach meshes with players. But on the surface, for a change that you could make in season, I don't think you're getting any better than this one, Pike. I don't think that you are getting one that is going to top it. You could tell me about Claude Julien, or you could tell me about Bruce Boudreau, or you could tell me about other coaches that are out there. I guess Gerard Gallant would be the third big name that remains out there on the market. I think Darryl Sutter's in the same conversation as those guys. You're not topping him, so I am fascinated as to how this is going to fit, how immediate the rub off is going to be, and where it goes from here. Because I think the entire outlook on the season has been altered now with the hiring of Darryl Sutter. Like, the entire outlook, from the last time we talked a week ago, wondering about, is this a lost season? Now it's, okay, playoffs or bust, and let's see how deep they can go with a coach who's won a couple Stanley Cups before.
Yeah, and an interesting X factor is, like, something that came out that, so Darryl has to go through quarantine and the COVID protocols, the specifics, to inside baseball folks, the NHL's COVID rules for joining a team midseason, they're very specific for players. They're a little bit fuzzier for off ice personnel. We're thinking that Darryl has to do, I think, a 7-day quarantine with 4 tests. He's already started testing. He's going to be able to join the team, I believe, Monday after he finishes some personal business. So that gives you a kind of an idea of how long this has been in the works. When Darryl
kind of leads you to believe that, like, it's been in the
okay.
works for 2 or 3 days. Hey, like they've known about this. They asked him to maybe start going through this, and because they knew this was coming. Kind of makes you think that maybe after Monday's 5-1 loss, maybe that was when this whole thing started.
That's kind of how it feels. You're in the middle of that road trip, and you think the Flames turned a corner after that 6-3 win, and then they lay that egg on Monday. So, if I were them, that's kind of what I would be thinking too. But, I think the interesting X factor is, so Darryl Sutter won't be with the club tomorrow against the Oilers, or on Sunday against Ottawa back at home. And he'll join the team on Monday, and he'll run practice Tuesday. I believe Monday is a scheduled off day. So the Darryl Sutter era begins on Tuesday. The interesting thing is, running the bench on the weekend will be Ryan Huska. Ryan Huska was, the longtime head coach. He played junior hockey with Jerome McGinley for the Kamloops Blazers, the team that Connor Zary got drafted from. He was the longtime head coach of the Kelowna Rockets, won a Memorial Cup. He was the longtime coach of the Stockton Heat. The Flames they speak fairly highly of Ryan Huska. So Huska will be running the bench for Saturday and Sunday. He'll be, from what he was saying today when we were chatting with him during his chat with the media, they're going to be sort of consulting with Darryl on, I assume a few things, like just there's going to be regular communication with Darryl, but Darryl's not going to be in Calgary or Edmonton. He'll be, I believe, he'll still be in Viking. But if you're the kind of the interesting thing about all this is, we get a chance to see them test drive for 2 games a guy who they think might be a head coach someday, and that'll be really cool because Ryan Huska is someone, you listen to talk about the game. He's a very bright, energetic guy. He's been, he's really tight with the guys they brought up through Stockton the last few years. He's been, he's really tied in with the youth movement within the Flames organization in the last 2 seasons and their improved drafting and development. So that's going to be an interesting X factor because, the standings are jam-packed, and potentially if the Flames beat the Oilers and beat the Senators this weekend, they can be even with the Oilers in the standings. That could be kind of interesting. And then Darryl comes in with a clean slate and, a pretty decent positioning for which to start his part of the season. So there is going to be a lot of interesting things to be focusing on over the next 48 to 72 hours, because we're gonna see, exactly what this is gonna be like. Because you and I covered that 2012-13 lockout season where it seemed like the Flames, it was the last dance with the Jerome McGinley crew, and it became very clear that they weren't going to be able to make the playoffs or do anything substantial, and there was a tension around the team, and everybody was tight, and everyone was tense, and they looked tense, and they played tense, and then the day after they traded Jerome McGinley, everybody seemed like they relaxed because the other shoe had dropped. They didn't have to, worry about anything anymore. They could just play. And now that, for whatever reason, things were not working for this year's Calgary Flames, and the shoe has dropped. So how are they going to look against Edmonton? Because Edmonton's a team that has pressure on them. And, a lot of teams, pretty much everybody in the Canadian division has pressure on them. 2 coaches have already gotten knocked out this year. How are the Flames going to look against Edmonton? Are they going to look looser? Are they going to look more relaxed? I'll give this. The Ottawa Senators are a team that has no expectations this year, and they play just like they're having fun. And can the Flames get back to sort of playing like that? Because when the Flames look like they're having fun, they're a really fun team to watch, and they're a really terrifying team probably to play against. So it's going to be a fascinating weekend, man. It's going to be
fascinating. Final 32 games. It's going to be insane. It's Flamesnation Live for our friends at Deuce Vodka. He's Ryan Pike. I'm Pat Steinberg from Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Let's get to a couple of the comments on the side. Eric writes, super pumped about Darryl coming back. He brought this team back from the ashes, and the boys, old and young, need that structure and will have a high level of respect for Darryl's accomplishments. Elias writes, should the Flames trade Bennett for a right winger? We can talk more about that in a second. I have one kind of closing question to throw at Pike, but let's continue through some of these comments. JF says, I'm curious how long the deal's been made with Sutter before they announced it. If he has to quarantine and there's 2 to 3 days left to it, how long is quarantine in Alberta? Pike went through that, so we think probably, we know it's a 7-day quarantine with the 4 positive tests, or 4 negative tests rather, and we know that it has to be 7 days, so probably started on Monday.
It feels like Monday or Tuesday. Like the only way the math makes sense is if they had something more or less agreed upon early this week.
Zach says if this Sutter hire doesn't work, it almost feels like you'll know deep down the Flames took way too long to rekindle the fire. For a core that's been together for this long and has done nothing, it's safe to say any other GM would have made some moves. That being said, Sutter's a stud, and if anyone can right the ship, it's him. So excited and love that he wants to win, and the pain of 03-04 is still burning. I want to go back as we get to our last topic on Flames Nation Live today. I want to go back to the comment that Elias made, or the question Elias made. He said, should the Flames trade Sam Bennett? Well, Bennett is one of the players that a lot of people have pinpointed as somebody who might thrive under Darryl Sutter. Let me ask you this. Give me one player that you are most fascinated to watch with Darryl Sutter now as this team's head coach. And if you need time, I can go first. Otherwise, the floor is yours, my friend.
You go first.
Elias Lindholm is that guy for me. What I know about Darryl Sutter hockey is they are a puck possession. He coaches puck possession teams that don't give up very many chances, that are extremely sound defensively, that control play in the offensive zone, that control scoring chances, and I think that fits Elias Lindholm's game to a T. You know who the driving force was in those LA Stanley Cup wins when they were the one of the 2 or 3 elite teams in the league every year? Anze Kopitar. And I think Elias Lindholm's game, Geoff Ward, the outgoing head coach, compared him a lot to Patrice Bergeron. And I see plenty of similarities in Lindholm's game to Bergeron's game, but I see more similarities in Lindholm's game as I do to Kopitar's game personally. The physicality, the two-way game. Kopitar's a bigger player physically. I understand that, but I just think that type of player thrives in a Darryl Sutter system. So there's plenty of other guys that you can point to, but Elias Lindholm is the guy that I am most fascinated to watch and most excited to see how he potentially thrives under Darryl Sutter as the new head coach. What about you?
I'm gonna go to his line mate Matthew Tkachuk, because Matthew Tkachuk, he's an emotional player. He's a young guy already wearing a letter on his chest because a lot of folks around the organization and in media say he's going to be the next captain. I don't disagree. So when Tkachuk is emotionally engaged, when Tkachuk is agitating, getting under players' skin. He kind of reminds me of his old friend from LA, Drew Doughty, in the sense that when Doughty was on his game, when Doughty was playing smart hockey and using his tools to just make other teams hate him, that's when the Kings were the most dangerous, the most effective. So can Tkachuk, find that consistency again, because he had it early in the year and it sort of tailed off in the last like 10, 12 games. If he can find that burn, that he has, that he makes him so effective. Like he had 3 primary assists last game, but seeing him a bit more physically engaged and sort of a little bit more emotionally keeled, tuned in, I think that's gonna be fascinating. But like you said, there's so many players. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that how is Johnny Gaudreau? Like Johnny Gaudreau, he played college hockey under Jerry York, and Jerry York is sort of an old school hockey guy. But I think Darryl will be the most intense human being that ever coaches Johnny Gaudreau. Like how's Johnny Gaudreau gonna? And even I think the funny thing is just thinking ahead. I mean the mechanics of this whole thing are fascinating in the sense that Brad Treliving is in the first year of a 3-year contract extension that runs through 2022-23. You know whose contract's identical to him? Darryl
Yep.
Sutter. That's fascinating to me on a lot of levels. The contracts run through the presumed ends of the contracts for Mangiapane, Tkachuk, Gaudreau, Giordano. That's fascinating to me. So I think the next 32 games, 30 some games are going to determine a lot of the direction for this club for not just a season, but several seasons to go. And then we have Seattle coming in July, and will this change who gets protected, who gets exposed, who gets whatever? I think it's all all up in the air now. I think if you had that written on a whiteboard, outside of you got to protect Markstrom and you got to ask Lucic to waive, everything's up in the air now.
Man, what a last couple of days in Calgary Flamesland. One more plug for our sponsor over at Deuce Vodka, the feel good vodka. If well, first of all, it's available in Alberta liquor stores today. If you can't find Deuce Vodka, yell at your local liquor store and get them to bring it in. Deuce Vodka across Alberta, your celebratory vodka, and maybe you're celebrating today with the Calgary Flames bringing back head coach Darryl Sutter. He's signed to a 3-year deal. He will debut behind the bench on Thursday when Calgary hosts the Montreal Canadiens. Piker, as we wrap things up on Flames Nation Live, brought to you by Deuce Vodka, tell us about what's happening at Flames Nation. I'll have something on Sutter and analytics coming next week, I think. But what else do we got going on flamesnation.ca right now?
It's gonna be a busy weekend. I mean, Stockton's playing this weekend. We got Stockton's winning actually right now. We got I'm writing a guide as we speak to the Sutters. Tell your Sutters apart. There's a lot of Sutters, and they've played for basically everyone, and all the have worked for the Flames at some point. There's two Sutters now working for the Flames, and the other one might surprise you. And look at it sort of just looking into Ryan Huska's comments from this morning about how the hell is this going to work this weekend, because this is a unique situation where he has a boss, a bench boss who will not be on the bench with him this weekend. So it's we're going to dig into that, and then of course we got a couple big games this weekend. One against the one of the more challenging teams in one of the more challenging buildings for the Flames in the NHL, in the form of the Oilers. This is probably the only time this year that the Battle of Alberta might be a bit of an afterthought. And then they're back at home on Sunday to play Ottawa, and they've split 4 games with Ottawa this year. Can the Flames find some consistency and knock out that good game, bad game, good game, bad game pendulum, and actually find some consistency before Darryl comes in, kicks the door down, and bag skates everybody?
Flamesnation.ca for all your coverage this weekend and beyond. Saturday's game goes at 8 o'clock. We'll have it for you on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Our pregame coverage on Saturday starts at 6. And then note the start time for Sunday, 7:30 for the Flames and the Ottawa Senators on Sunday back at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And again, our coverage will start at 6 o'clock. For Pike, I'm Steinberg. Stay safe. Be kind to one another. We'll talk to you next week on Flames Nation Live. Stop by flamesnation.ca. Thanks to our sponsor at Deuce Vodka. Have a great weekend, everybody. It's been all Darryl all day, and this has been another edition of Flames Nation Live. Take care, everyone.